Greetings, Astrophiles. This is Pat Cosgrove for Cosgrove's Cosmos. My observatory project is complete, but while it was being built, the lawn really took a beating. Between deliveries and cement trucks and the construction crews coming up and down it, it really needed some TLC and some restoration. At the same time, we wanted to make sure that the drainage around the building was just right. So not only did we want to restore the lawn, we wanted to install some French drains to drain any water away from it. Today I'd like to share what we did here, so let's get started. This low-angled sun video clearly shows all of the tire tracks in the lawn that would have to be filled in and smoothed out. And the drone video gives you a really good idea of how torn up the lawn is as you look to the left there. There's just a sea of mud that's been torn up from all of the work that's been done. There's a low section in there where water is now pooling. We have to handle that. Because we're sitting on a hill, there is an area that's slightly higher than the observatory towards the north, which means when we have snowmelt or heavy rains, it could be running down the hill towards the observatory. So we're going to have to deal with that drainage question too. Also notice that we don't have gutters on the observatory. I was originally going to put gutters on the observatory with the thinking that I needed to take the rain that was coming off the roof and pull it away from the foundation. However, when you put gutters on, snow and ice tend to stay up on a metal roof. Without the gutters, once the building warms up a little bit or there's a little bit of sunshine, the snow slides right off, which is really what I wanted to do. So instead of putting gutters on, we decided we had to do some other kind of drainage around the actual foundation of the building to deal with that. We decided to install some French drains right around the base of the observatory itself. This would collect water and let it run off to the lower portions of the property. The solid red lines would show where the French drains would go. There'd be one on the east and west side of the building and one to the north of the building. The dotted lines show where they would drain off to. These are basically underground pipes that will take it off to lower portions of the property. The north line would drain off in one direction, while the east and west lines would drain off to a line that would run from the south. We would have to trench where the French drains were going to have to go. Then we'd be filling it with this washed round gravel, and a cloth-covered PVC drain pipe would be buried in that gravel. Once the drains are in, we decided that what we were going to do is put a rectangle of stone that would surround the building and cover the back steel framework where the roof would roll off. This would give a nice clean boundary between the lawn and the building. Since this gravel would show, we chose a nice crushed granite for the topping stone that would dress things out nicely, and we planned on putting edging in that would separate the stone area from the lawn. In addition to that, underneath the stone, we would have a cloth that would prevent weeds from coming in. First job was to recontour the ground elevations so that we had a little bit less dirt on the high spots, more gradual transitions, and some more dirt filling in some of the low spots where things were pooling right now, so things would drain naturally. At the end of the first day, we had the basic contouring done, and we began to lay down the weed cloth that would be defining where the gravel was going to go. Since some of the weed cloth was already down, some of the decorative stone was delivered, and we began to spread that out on the back of the building there. The main task for the next day was to dig the trenches for the French drains and the runoff lines. A small shovel was brought in with a 12-inch wide bucket in order to cut these narrow trenches. The first trench cut was the one that followed the back north line of the building, and then the drain area where it would go off into the lower ground onto the side. The trenching generated a lot more fill dirt, which was handy, as we still had the low spots we needed to fill in a little bit. As the first trench was completed, we needed to start bringing in the washed round stone, which would be filling that trench And the idea was to first put a level of stone in on the bottom. Then when we put in the cloth filtered 4-inch PVC drain line, and then we would cover that completely with the remainder of the stone. With the stone foundation laid, we can now put the drain pipe into the trench. This was then covered with more gravel. Part of this trench is now filled with dirt again because this will be lawn. This is the pipe that's basically going to take the runoff from the French drain and bring it to the low spot. Also, by covering this area up with dirt, it allows the digger to get up onto the high end and begin to address the gravel needs for the back of the With the north French drain complete, we can now start working on the trench for the eastern side of the building, followed by the trench on the western side of the building. These two are going to come to a Y or junction, and then a single drain line will be going into lower ground. As we got closer to the corner of the building, we had to be very careful because that's where the underground power lead runs into the building. So that area was excavated mostly by hand. As the runoff trench was dug for the east and western walls, the lighter 4x4 was brought in to take the dirt and haul it over to the other side of the observatory, thinking that the lighter vehicle with the rubber tires would do less damage on the established lawn, which is up there. Foundation layer of stone was filled into the trench, and after that, the perf pipe was laid into the trench before the rest of the stone was laid on top of that, and finally dirt on top of that. At this point, we were ready to dig the trench for the western side of the building. I'm a little nervous about this big piece of equipment digging very close to the building itself, but Aaron did a great job of controlling the machinery, and the building was never touched. At the end of the day, the French drains were in and covered with dirt where they needed to be covered, or covered with gravel where that was going to be happening. Next, the attention would go to bringing the decorative stone and starting to fill the back area and around the building, and then surrounding this with edging. I wasn't there when this part of the work was done, so I had to film what it looked like afterwards. I like the effect that the gravel made. It has a nice boundary, and once the grass comes in, I think this will really look quite nice. At this point, topsoil was brought in, spread over the newly contoured ground, raked out, seed and starter fertilizer and hay was spread out, so we began to have the final bits here, which will lead to a lawn. At this point, the work is done. Now it's going to be our job to keep this area watered so that the seed can grow. We're in a time of the year where we don't necessarily have a lot of rain, and it can get quite warm during the days. So it took quite a bit of effort to keep the area moist and with hope that the grass would start to come in and grow up through the hay. About a week later, we started seeing a little bit of a hint of green where the new grass was just starting to poke through the hay. About 2 weeks later, it's starting to fill in even more. It's still pretty rough, but we're starting to see enough green come through we're getting encouraged. Another week later, and the grass had grown so much that it really needed to be cut. And we used a light electric lawnmower to very gingerly go through and cut the new grass area. It's starting to come in. There's still some patches that have to come along, but we're making progress. Another week, and we had the second mowing, and the rough patches are slowly starting to fill in, and it's starting to look much more like a lawn.
Shortly after this project was done, we had a major microburst, and probably the heaviest rain I've ever seen in these areas. It was a great test of the drainage. The French drains did their job and diverted water away from the observatory, and the drainage contouring that was done in the lawn restoration drained water away to where we wanted it to go. So all is looking great. The lawn is pretty much in. We've mowed it a few times, and as with any new lawn, it takes a little bit of TLC to get fully established, but we're well on the way. I'd like to give a special thanks to Aaron from Finger Lakes Management Solutions, who did all the work for this restoration. He did a great job, and things are looking wonderful. So this is Pat Cosgrove signing off for Cosgrove's Cosmos, wishing you clear skies and excellent seeing.